All right. Make sure that I'm live here. Hi, guys. All right, let's see. Oh my God. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Night Live. This is our second edition here. Just making sure that there I am. All right, we're live. Sorry. All right. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about souls, reincarnation, karma, and most importantly, well, not most importantly, but it is the first time that I'm actually going to answer this question that I've been asked my whole time posting on TikTok. During the entire soul series, I got asked almost like daily, and when I put this out there today, it was the most asked question, which is the whole karma, soul trap. You know, there's this idea that when you die, now don't get scared, it's a pretty scary idea. There's this idea that when you die, when they say go into the light, some guy, it is also in some ways connected to Robert Monroe, but there's also other people who basically started saying that they learned that don't go into the light. Because if you go into the light, you actually just get sucked into a horrible reincarnation cycle. And yeah, so you guys can all hear me, right? Hi, guys. Yes. So that is what we're talking about when we talk about the reincarnation, soul trap, all of that. I'm going to actually save that question for the end because it's so complex. It actually, for us to even talk about that, requires for us to talk about so many other things first. So I'm glad that there was a lot of questions. So I actually didn't even have to come up with kind of some standard topics in the area of souls and reincarnation because there was a lot of really good questions. And there were some people who submitted several questions but had multiple really good questions. So let's get into it. How's everyone doing tonight? Don't worry. I actually, Vivian, I also got stuck watching the ad myself. That's why the beginning of this video is me looking really confused. So don't worry, you did not miss too much. Because I got stuck in the same loop, even on my own show. All right. So let's see. We're going to start with some of the more simple, well, maybe not simple, but more grounded questions because they are complex. Because when it comes to souls, karma, reincarnation, it's always pretty complex. So, but one of the most important questions I think that we could all benefit from, it's something that's also personal to me. Someone asked, if we're all in the same soul family and we're incarnating together lifetime after lifetime, then what happens when you have a shitty parent? And so I think that's a great question, a great place to start. That's something that also I dealt with learning this information when I was learning about the souls and you choose your life and you choose your family. And when I think about myself, my adult life, I'm like, yeah, I did choose this. You think about your childhood and you're like, did I really choose my father? Like, that's horrible. And I also personally don't feel that my father is in my soul family. You know, I never felt that connection from a young age. So, you know, this will be a little different than how we do it on TikTok because I can pull up the exact pages, but I can pull up a couple of interesting things here. So, Journey of Souls actually, and Destiny of Souls. Sometimes I forget if it's in the first or second book because they kind of elaborate more on stuff in here. But so we have Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. And so so in Destiny of Souls, there's actually a chapter specifically about this, and we'll get to that next. First, I want to talk a little bit about, let's see if I found that. Ooh, yes. I found a couple pages before I started, and I actually used some little pictures that I was going to send to Linda Moulton Howe for my alien thing. So that's me and my grandma. So, okay, take a look at this diagram. Let me make sure that I can see you guys. Okay. All right, so here we go. We have this diagram. Okay, so see this right here. This is awkward. Way easier on TikTok when I put it behind me, but this is a more intimate where we get to actually get deeper into these ideas. So see this right here. These two things right here. So this is two separate soul clusters. So you see, one of these clusters has like 8 people, and then this cluster here has only 4 people, and then they're inside of a bubble. So basically, the bigger bubble is maybe the spiritual setting, which this is like souls that are kind of operating around the same group, learning similar lessons. You kind of have like your immediate soul cluster, but then you have a neighboring clusters that are at the same level and they're doing similar things. Because if you only have like say 4 people in your immediate soul family, you have 1,000 people to meet in a lifetime. So you actually do use the neighboring things, the people that are also on those same levels that are learning similar lessons or complementary lessons. Like say one group can kind of be learning a little bit about like patriarchal stuff, and another side could be learning about matriarchal stuff, just as an example. You know, so in different lives, they would play those different roles with each other. But then you see that there's other neighboring bubbles. And one of the things that Dr. Michael Newton talks about, which is really interesting, because a lot of times he says actually that parents are not always in the soul group, your immediate soul group, that they're usually in a secondary group because parents are usually at a different soul's evolution, a different level of their soul's evolution, which is why we see a lot of times that you have a very old soul as a child with a very young soul as the parent. And a lot of us in our generation, well, I mean, we're all generations here, I'm sure, but the generation that is all alive now, of all different generations, the people that are alive now, a lot of us did have to parent our parents in a lot of cases. And so that's something. So that's I wanted to first address the first part of her question, which was about the soul family and if you have like this kind of bad parent or bad player. So you guys are all learning different lessons, but that person might not even be in your immediate soul group. And Dr. Michael Newton says it's more likely that that person is at a different level, because why would the old soul and the young soul be in the same group if your group is kind of like a group project that you're all working together towards similar goals? So they would actually be working towards different lessons and different goals a lot of times. So there are sometimes secondary groups and people from other lives that you do still have karma with from like maybe several lifetimes ago, and now you're going to give it a go. That's one of the examples. Now, from Destiny of Souls, one of my favorite chapters actually in this book is this chapter about this exact topic, because I don't have a good relationship with my own father. So this chapter was actually so moving. So this guy goes through the death process. Let me just take a little sip here of are not sponsors, but they should be. I don't know who they're. I've got it all wrong by not sponsoring me, but okay. So this guy goes through the hypnosis process. He's dying in his most previous past life. So he's alive now. He died in his past life. Went through that past life and then is in the part of that past life where he's dying and crossing back over into the spirit world. So he's greeted in this process by his aunt, his mother, his friends, his daughter, you know, all these different people. And it's this like joyous experience. And I think they actually have a similar diagram in here. No, I won't find it. So they have this joyous thing, but then as the hypnosis is going on a little bit, he's like, oh, behind, it seems like there's someone behind. Weird, I get the energy like someone's back there. So then Dr. Newton is like, well, let's see who is back there. And it's actually his father from that life. And he's like, oh, it's my father who put me down, who hurt me, who literally like destroyed me and my self-esteem and everything. And then, like, when you're first crossing back over into the spirit world, you're still very connected to your human identity. So then he's like, well, you're a prick. And the father has already been passed for a while and has already done a lot of soul work and has already watched his own life and reflected on his own life. And he's already, honestly, part of the reason he was hiding is because he's also ashamed to be rejoining with someone in his full soul family who he really did treat that way and didn't learn the lesson. So that's another thing too, is that we also sometimes have to accept. So this is the thing, is you're moving with your soul group. You guys are all helping each other because you want to move to the next lesson. So there could be some horrible thing between you. So you guys learn this really big lesson so you all can get to the next level. Now, sometimes you might have someone in the group that doesn't want to learn the lesson or can't or isn't willing. Now they're going to kind of merge into a different different soul group, and or whoever, people who are advancing quicker, are going to merge into different soul groups too, that then get smaller and smaller and smaller and become more like specialized work type stuff. Not work, but like purpose, career in a way. So, they were, in that example, actually in the same soul group, and it was part of what they had to learn with each other. And then they actually, after they had the initial thing of like, hey, you were a terrible father, you were a terrible prick, they then, even through this hypnosis session, like healed a lot of that and understood a lot of the reasons why. And then he understood why in his life now, his relationship with his father was parallel. And that's why he saw that stuff in hypnosis. And one other thing about parents and having parents that are not good, or just, didn't meet your needs or whatever, or just someone, like, for me personally, that I would never want to have another past life with. Like, that part of the reason why I learned to forgive is because I'm like, I ain't doing this shit again with you. We're done after this. Oh, it's okay, it's fine, I forgive you, but no, I won't be back. We won't be doing this again. This will be our last time. So I feel like it's okay to feel that way too. We don't need to be all overly like, unrealistic about that. We wouldn't want to do this over again with the same people because we couldn't learn the lessons and forgive them this time. But one of the other most important things, which is, this is like, so we know that the Dolores book and that these books, this information came from their work in the 60s throughout the up to the early 2000s. Now, what we know from that time, now what we know with like these waves of volunteers and these other souls that are incarnating into human bodies for what's happening on the planet now. Now with that, this is another thing. So because the planet is changing and karma on this planet is changing, and what we've been told and what we information that comes from a lot of sources is that the consciousness of the planet is going to raise. And that means that lower forms of consciousness are not really going to be habitable here anymore, because it's going to be at a higher frequency than that they can perceive. This is allegedly what we hear in a very simplified form. So in order for this shift to happen, these souls have to come down and be here. Now, there's people on this earth who are not those higher souls. Nothing wrong with it. They're going through the same process that maybe those same higher souls once went through. So, but there's, say, people like maybe some of our parents who do want to heal their karma, and they do want to give it a shot at really like completing this mission on earth too. So they might not have some of the skills to do it in the way that maybe anyone here watching would. But maybe this parent, which this comes up a lot of times in Dolores's work, in her later books in Convoluted Universe, talks about how, sorry, there's so many sounds, it's just gonna happen, this dog barks all day. That basically, sometimes a soul that has a lot of karma to work off will choose to bring in a star seed or volunteer or higher child or indigo child or rainbow child, all these different terms that we have for these like similar things that we feel are happening. Now, they get a lot of like karma points for doing that, for bringing, say, any of you into this planet. So that's sometimes another thing too, is that maybe they might not be a good parent because they really are trying, and this is one of their last shots, and actually bringing you here And you doing this and the things that you teach them is actually one of their last services that they can do to cancel out some of their own karma before the planet changes, and that they won't be able to do certain lessons here on this planet anymore. So those are my thoughts on the parent situation, which I loved that question, which is why I wanted to start with it. Okay, the next question is a little strange. I don't know if this person was like trolling, but I decided to answer anyway. The person said karma for not having your baby. Now, I don't know if they mean like because I don't know. I don't know if they mean because like I don't have kids, or maybe they're talking personally, and that's why I did want to actually answer the question in case they are talking for themselves. If they're trolling, then whatever. But also, I felt like this is a question that comes up a lot that I don't talk about on TikTok, and that's kind of what I want to do on these lives, is answer some of the topics that I don't talk about on TikTok. And because TikTok is so fiery, like on TikTok they literally, if you say certain things, they want to like, they all come out with the pitchforks and the freaking thing to knock down the moat, like to go through the moat and fucking knock down the shit, like the drop bridge, like, so there's some topics that sometimes are a little bit more nuanced than what can be communicated in a video like that. So I kind of took this question as karma for not having your baby. I took it as like abortion, or even losing a child through other means, because that's such a broad spectrum. The word is such a broad spectrum. It's something that I haven't talked about too, because I don't like to get political. It shouldn't be a political issue. The way that I'm going to talk about it isn't a political issue, because it's only going to be based on the information that I've come across on this topic. Back to the books. Okay, I don't know if it's in Journey of Souls or Destiny of Souls, once again, but it does address it in here. Dr. Michael Newton does ask in, I think it's Destiny of Souls, what happens when someone chooses to not go through with their pregnancy, and like what happens karmically to that person, what happens on a soul level, what happens to the soul that was supposed to come in, that thought they were going to come in. Now, I've heard this answer from 3 different sources, from Dolores, and from a Reuben Langdon interview where they were channeling the Council of Light. All 3 of them gave the exact same answer. So that's why I feel comfortable with that answer. And at the same time, everyone has their own place to decide how they feel about the situation. So based on those 3 people's information, I do want to share what they all consistently said. So Dr. Michael Newton says, all of them basically say that first, because time is simultaneous, there's no confusion with that soul on the other side about coming through. Because I hear a lot of times that's what people in the spiritual world sometimes say, that you're kind of like, that someone had a contract to come here and you stopped it. There's no contract, because time is simultaneous. And we know also from Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls about how the life select, and Dolores's books, how the life selection process works. So this life selection process is like the TikTok algorithm times 10 billion. It's such like every scenario is mapped out in this way that there's no mistaking that was a life and it got shut by someone making that decision. So that's what I've heard on all 3 of them, is that there's really there is no soul that's coming through. However, they do say sometimes there is a soul that wants to come through, but it waits and it watches, because it is another soul that you already have a contract for it to be your child. So it's already written. So regardless, it's already written, it already is, and they already know that they're coming one way or another to you. So that, it's like it already knows it's coming. There is some times where things happen, especially when it's not a personal choice, where it's something that is beyond someone's control, which is so common, more common than it really should be in the modern world. And I think it probably does need to be addressed, what's going on. But there's so many other things happening with birth, that the information applies to them too, is that soul is watching. That soul that's going to come through and be your child already knows you. already knows you probably 10 million times through and through, knows you better than you know yourself right now as a human. They know the real you. So there's no mistaking. If that soul's going to be your child, you've already agreed to, and they will come through, and that will happen when it happens at the right way that it's going to happen. Now they say, as far as like karmically, say now someone chooses not to for whatever reason, they say that actually the karma, there's not specific rules of right and wrong the way that we have them here. That here we have very defined right and wrong rules. Where they say in the spirit world, the rules are a little bit more defined on the sense of following your heart and following your true path and stepping in your purpose and being honest and real and expressing what is the real feelings that are inside and letting those real feelings inside manifest to your truth in your world. So they say actually if someone really chooses that they don't want to be a parent, then that is following their soul's calling. So they say that it's a little bit more nuanced on their side because there's really no other soul that it's connected to. Now, you want to talk about on Earth and all of that stuff and the 3D stuff? I mean, argue till the cows come home. I don't really care, you know? I think everything goes under a bodily choice, including, you know, things that are mandated. I think everything comes down to a personal choice because that is what I agree with following. You need to follow your heart. Our purpose is to like always be following what's right for you. So feeling I'm supposed to, I should. In this book, Bringers of the Dawn, let me see if I get it. This book, Bringers of the Dawn, they say that really you always, everything that you have to do is following what you feel is the right thing to do. And, you know, hold on, take a sip of this. Aw, that's so true, Ruby. You do hear a lot of stories about that, that kids say things like that, that I was here and then I was gone and I came back. Hi, everybody. No cows live at my home. Oh, I wish I had a cow. I'm going to have a cow one day. I love them so much. They're my favorite. Dogs and cows are my favorite. And I also like scary birds too. Okay. Next question. Are our pets going to ascend with us? Now, there's a lot of, also, all of these have very layered answers, which is why this is for the YouTube and not for the TikToks, okay? So, the pets ascending. One, the animals also know why they're coming too. The animals are maybe even some ways more aware of things that are naturally happening than we are. So we don't have to worry about the animals. Now, that said, in this book, Keepers of the Garden by Dolores Cannon, they're talking about the future Earth shift. They're talking about this new Earth. And then in this book, they actually talk about that there's another planet that is very close to Earth that we can also be taken to. That some aliens are going to like basically take people of that planet too. So I hear a lot of people channel stuff like that too. I've heard that story many times. I'm a little bit more towards the dimensional shift is kind of my area that I feel goes across a lot of different sources and gives a lot of the same information. Okay, but in this book, they talk about how basically like in 5D, they ask about the animals. They say don't worry about the animals, but they also say like there will be, so they talk about this other planet too, and they say that if people do have to live on another planet, if something happens and people do have to live on another planet, they're going to bring like cattle and stuff there. And Dolores is like, to eat in the 5th dimension? They're going to eat cows in the 5th dimension? And I'm reading this like, oh my God, they're going to eat cows in the 5th dimension. What the? And the answer was that there will still be people who need that to sustain their body. It's not going to be this one, you know, brush stroke for everybody. There will be still people who need to have meat in their diet, and this is not something to be judged, and that the animals also know that they're a part of this service to the planet, to humanity, to the universe. They're incarnating to be a part of service also to this larger plan, so that you don't have to worry about that. I still, I don't like factory farming is the reason I don't eat it. But I don't know what anyone else should do. People with all different blood types do need to eat different things. Like people who have type O blood or one of the O's, like negative or whatever, needs to eat red meat. Now, for me, it actually says that chicken, red meat are not actually good for me, and I've been so much healthier since not eating those things. So that's just what I say. Also, it says for my blood type that I should eat dairy, and I do. So here we are. Now, also about that eating meat thing, that like animals being of service, that's not the first time I heard that. I heard that in some weird controversy because, I have a lot of information, but I also have a lot of information about things that are very unrelated to this. And one of those things that it just very quickly made me think of is in LA, there's like these kind of like famous vegan restaurants like Cafe Gratitude, Gracias Madre. They're like this big chain. Gracias Madre is like Jay-Z and Beyonce's favorite restaurant. And then there's like these like basically huge vegan powerhouses. Now the people who created those restaurants been vegans for like 25 years or whatever and created this huge empire on veganism. And then a couple years ago there was controversy because people found out that they started eating meat again. And the vegans were pissed. They were like, I'm not going to eat at a vegan restaurant that's owned by people who not only eat meat, but they found out that these people were raising and slaughtering their own cows. And they said that this is the right way to do it. If we're going to eat meat, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to raise our own animals and we're going to kill them. And they're like, how could I eat at a vegan's restaurant that kills their own cows? And now, so then I started kind of like getting down the rabbit hole of like the vegan drama of LA. I'm like, oh shit. And then I get down deeper to this rabbit hole and I find out that Sage, which is actually my favorite vegan spot. Now, Sage is like, Gracias Madre, these things are like price range up here. Sage is like right below that. And it's a little bit more practical. It's still completely overpriced, but it's a little bit more like comforty and nice. Everything at Gracias Madre, I don't know how this is Jay-Z and Beyonce's favorite restaurant, is mushy. The entire menu is mushy. So, Sage, they end up being the children, the adult children of the people who own those other two restaurants. So it's still the same family. So then I dig deeper and I find out that that same family is providing to the other big vegan spot, which was Pine. It's called Pine? Yeah. Little Pine, which is owned by Moby. So Moby's restaurant is then, so all these other vegan places were getting everything from this one family who then said that we're going to start killing the cows ourselves because God said that it's their service to us to provide us with food. So everybody lost it. The PR and all the money behind it like squashed this controversy, but I remember. I haven't forgotten the vegan drama rabbit hole. That video would probably do really well on TikTok, but I don't want to be involved. I don't know what these vegans are capable of. Okay. Pets ascending. So yes, I've heard there will be animals in these things, in these other dimensions or this future, or people ascending other planets, if it's going to be this dimension, whatever it's going to be. They say there will be animals and they might still have the same role in our lives. Now, I've also heard other things say that because our consciousness is raising, the Earth's consciousness is raising, and animals' consciousness is raising. So animals are not going to really be our pets anymore because they're raising in consciousness. And now we also learn this once again from Between Death and Life, Destiny of Souls, and Journey of Souls. We learn about how the animals, when they're hive soul, but as we start to give them more unconditional love, they become individual. And then as they become more individual, after they pass as an animal, so they live maybe 10 to 16 years, hopefully, and then they pass their next life, they can break from the hive and become an individual because then they're like, I am, Nintendo the dog. And now Nintendo, in his next life, can choose to be a human. So, we do want our animals to ascend with us, but we also need to know that, like, they are giving us so much right now, unconditional love, and they're already doing so much for us. And we're doing a lot for them by giving them love and individualizing them. But they also have a journey, So we also have to be okay with, like, accepting that, like, maybe our animals, when there will be a time that they pass, but there's a chance that next life they could be a little boy or a little girl, a little baby. So, and that's maybe what they want in their process, and maybe that's why they chose you to be the owner, because it would help them to be able to go down that process. So we also have to be willing to let the animals go, even though I've heard that there will be animals still having the same purpose in other realities or whatever happens, and also that they could be raising consciousness on their own, and there's so much more to that. So it's like a bittersweet thing because of how much we love them. But we also do want them to, it's so cute. Like, I really noticed in the last couple of years because I love animals, but especially dogs, I really noticed in like the last couple of years when I look into like dogs' eyes, I'm like, oh, you're gonna be a little boy. Oh, you're gonna be such a good little sweet little boy. Oh, so that's both of them, they may be there, or maybe they'll be doing something better. Let's see. Someone asked, how do you know what your karma is? Now, it's a complex question. There's a lot of answers. One, simple, could be like astrology, because I think it's like Chiron and the nodes and stuff that represent like karma, so you could do something with that. Akashic records could help you find it. Hypnosis can help you find it. But let's be real here. You want to know what your karma is? Look at your life. Look at your life. That's like really what it is. That's how I feel. The most I learned about my own karma has been really for reflecting on the patterns in my life. For me, I pretty much, trigger warning, think to yourself, all the horrible things that happened to me, what do they all have in common? I hate asking myself that question. And aside from the obvious first answer, which is me, they all have me in common, that's for sure. That's the obvious first answer. Once we get past that, we can ask ourselves, okay, what is this? Is it a dynamic between other people? Is it a dynamic with ourselves? Is it a story that we're telling ourselves? Is it something that keeps happening to us? Is it happening to me in love? Is it happening to me in sex? Is it happening to me in work? Is it happening to me in friendship, interpersonal? Is it happening to me in business? Is it happening to me with money? And now you see, is this pattern happening through all of it? Or is this pattern happening a lot in the same topic, and different people who come into your life fill this same role in this same aspect of your life? Now, if it's across a lot of categories, like every category, now you could have several, because you probably have a lot of things that you're trying to work on in this life and learn. But if you feel like you're every category's fucked, could be a little bit of self-sabotaging going. And when you get to self-sabotage, that's a little bit more like, why do I feel like I don't deserve this? And maybe that's the karmic question that you have to ask. Why do I feel like I don't deserve a good life, or a good relationship, or good money, or good work, or good this, or house, or that, or not just material things, but just happiness, other things. But most people are going to have something that is like one or two topics that continuously come up. So I think that's the best way to look at your karma. And for me, that thing is definitely the relationships. I do really good in a lot of aspects of my life. I'm emotionally stable, so a lot of these aspects are stable. When it comes to relationships, I'm like, obviously this is some crazy ass fucking karma. Again and again and again and again. It's like the next, you think you have a different guy, it's like happens like the same thing. You think you have like completely changed your formula of what you're interested in men, and then it's like the same thing again. So, I actually then did that work and really reflected on like, shit, well, I guess my karma is related to that. And you have to combine your spiritual with your like kind of psychology 101 stuff, and kind of Why do I do this? Why is this happening? Why am I attracted to these people? What draws me to this? Okay, that gets back to our first question about a shitty parent. Most of the time it does. Um, but then, for me, many years of knowing this and working on this topic and really feeling like, why? Why is this continuously like this? So I did ask the Akashic Records when I did my own. If you guys want, go watch my video, how to access the Akashic Records, and you can practice accessing them yourself. Now, what it told me, and this is, I access them regularly, so it's a little bit easier for me to get the information now. But when you're starting, you might not get like much at all. So that's okay. Just keep doing it regularly so that you can remember what it feels. Do it close enough that you remember what it feels like last time. So if you do it in a day or two, you're going to remember what it felt like last time you opened the records. And then you can start remembering that feeling and knowing this is what's happening and build up on that. So I asked the records, like, what the hell is going on already? How many relationships do I need to get cheated on and horribly, like, lied to? Like, what lesson? What lesson? I've read it all. I've soul searched. I've done it all. Well, what lesson? Please. So they're like, I need to work on betrayal because in one of my past lives, and they dropped this bomb on me, but this is like, they knew I could handle it at this moment. But they were like, in one of your past lives, you had a husband who was going off to war, and he went, you said you would never, when he was leaving, you told him you'll never love anyone else. And you literally meant it so deep that it rippled through time, forward, backward, everything. When this person was leaving to go to war, I said that I will never love anyone else. And fucking rippled all my shit. Like everything. And I have loved, but of course I've been in love, but that's all has been craziness. Crazy stuff has happened from that. Not like a good one. I mean, there's good ones, but then they become bad. But so I said that it rippled through time, they told me, and then he died in the war, or so I thought. This motherfucker was in a town. See, I'm pissed off. They told me I was pissed even the telling me. He was in the neighboring town with another woman, had a whole nother life, kids, everything. It had been years. I had been mourning his death for so many years. And then I found out that the town next to me, he had been there the whole time, these years, raising kids with this person, this woman, that he made it back. And that I just mourned forever and never did love again and was so betrayed. So then I was like, well, damn, that's heavy. How do I fix that? And they said that this soul, who was the husband in that life, we agreed to do that. And that was the agreement. He was going to do that, and I was going to work on like betrayal basically in this way. But that it hurt me so bad that I didn't progress from the lesson. So it happened again and again and again and again. And like, whether I'm fully incarnating, because we'll get into imprints, we'll see. But all of these different scenarios of that happening, and then a ton in this life, a ton of betrayal in relationships. So I'm like, damn, like, well, how do I get past it? And he said that, because it was like basically kind of like the higher self of the person who had done that to me, who's probably someone in my like immediate soul group or something. And basically that, because I got so hurt by it, it also like wounded him. So now this like other person's soul is also wounded because like we agreed to do this thing, but then it was like kind of like, oh, we went to go like jump off the cliff together, but then someone snapped their neck and died, and then you carry that guilt forever, is kind of like how he expressed it. So I was like, damn, fuck, well, betrayal's the karma. Probably didn't need the Akashic Records to tell me that. I could probably just look at my fucking life and relationships specifically related to that, specifically related to intimate love. Wow. So the best way to find out your karma is to be honest with yourself. Now let's talk about the imprints, because that's a really good I know. You guys are having an NPC conversation. How do you get over getting betrayed? It's so true. I will tell you some of the things that I've learned over in this journey, which is you understand that the person themselves are not okay. And themselves are not okay. Then, even though you know this logically, it takes a while for that message to get inside your heart. That when someone does something bad, it's a reflection of them and mostly of their own pain, their own trauma, their own unhealed shit. And it's not a reflection of you or what you're worth, or, it's not a reflection that you're not worthy of love or that you're not good enough to be enough for a person to not stray or betray, you know? And that's definitely the thing that I've learned so many times, because my last betrayal was a rough one, but my one before that, I literally walked in on him with another girl. Like, you think you peak. You think it doesn't get worse than that, but it can actually. And then I learned about the one that happened in a past life, and I'm like, damn, just keep fucking me up. But, okay. Imprints. Wow. Interesting, the creamy one. You think you're only ever betrayed by friends. Well, that's the thing too, is that's why when we're looking at our karma, we see which aspect of our life it is. So for me, the betrayal is in the aspect of like an intimate love. Some people have the betrayal in friendship. Some people have the betrayal with money or with career or with, creating some type of invention and then having it taken, like a Nikola Tesla betrayal thing that happened with him and Jefferson. Like, there's so many things. So I feel like we learn these different lessons in different categories so that we can gain a better understanding. Because then at the end, what did I learn by all of this? By, how many freaking lives, how many times in this life did I have to get betrayed? So how many times do I need to learn this lesson of acceptance in betrayal, which is a pretty gross lesson, if you ask me. I'd rather be learning like courage. But I guess those things, once you get over them, are the lessons of the good things. So I guess after that, I would have learned like resilience and all of that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about imprints versus real lives. So that was another question that came up. Was how do I know if the past lives that I have remembered are imprints, including the one I just told you about this husband going to war? How do I know if that's a real life that I actually lived, or if it's an imprint? And now, if anyone hasn't seen in my soul series where we talked about imprints are, wait, I think I have it. Imprints are okay, no, I don't. So, wait, I know I have it. Okay, I got it. All right, so we are in Between Death and Life by Dolores Cannon on page 244. Okay. Can you tell me, Dolores says this, can you tell me how I can tell the difference when I do work like this? Meaning between the imprints and between the real lives? No, because even I can't tell the difference. If I am in an imprint and the imprint is as real as if I actually experienced it, all the emotions, all the memories, all the feelings, virtually everything about that life is in the imprint. So from my point of view, I would be unable to tell because I would be completely absorbed in the experience. This is the whole idea of the imprint. This is the ability to live thousands of lives, hundreds of thousands of years on a planet, and have never actually been there before. Well, Dolores was like, well, then what would be the reason for this? If one has never experienced life on Earth before, or if it has perhaps been a long time since the last reincarnation, there would be no point of reference, nothing to fall back on or relate to. If one were to come to this planet without any aids of imprints, one would be totally lost. One would not understand customs, religions, politics, or how to act in a social environment. This is the necessity for the imprint. if there is no previous earthly experience of human existence in their subconscious, in order for this person to feel comfortable and at ease, there must be something in which to draw on and compare in those day-to-day experiences. So then let's see what she mentions there. Is she mentions how there would be no customs, religious references. Interesting, because isn't it so often that we see people who are very spiritual, who maybe are like star seeds, maybe volunteers, things like that. So often they say that they had a past life as like a high priestess or a medicine man or a mystic or a astrologer. So then that really makes you think, do they really have this life like that? Or most likely, is that one of the things that they're imprinting? So that's like, Dolores talks about that could be another explanation why so many people have these same past lives of like Marilyn Monroe, Cleopatra. These are like very common things. Personally, I think they're archetypes. I think people are seeing archetypes so I feel like the imprints are also similar to the archetype thing, and that it's basically a pattern, which is similar because you watch movies and you can see the same characters in a lot of movies, but like the outer details are changed, but they're very much like the same character. Like if you, just as like a really random example, if you watch the movie She's All That from the 90s and you watch 10 Things I Hate About You from the 90s, they came out like around the same time. They're the same exact movie. They're literally the same exact movie. This is like an archetype of that thing. So it's like you think about, that's something that we maybe are also downloading, you know? So there's no way to know. Now, here's a really important one. Roman priestess, yeah, in a past life. That's most likely, I feel like, what a lot of these things are too, is like really those lives have been uploaded into like the Akashic records, and then they could be downloaded back in because someone in this life needs those skills. Yeah, some things don't need to be lived. It's true. You feel like you get stuck in codependent relationships. How do you stop this pattern? Just touching on the last question still. Honestly, it's really, I'm a big believer. I like the work of Marissa Peer. She's a hypnotherapist. She created her own style of hypnosis. Guys know I love hypnosis. Like literally all the people who are into the hypnosis, I know who they are and I'm into them, okay? Now, it's not this type of style of hypnosis. It's not the Dolores, Dr. Newton, Brian Weiss, Helen Wambach. It's not that style. It's a completely different style of hypnosis. But this one is, her style of hypnosis is about brain reprogramming. So I really do believe that affirmations and fake it till you make it, I know people think that's toxic positivity. Anyone who thinks it's toxic positivity, I don't want to be like you. It's that simple. Think it's toxic positivity. I don't give a shit. I would never want to be like you. So that's all I have to say about that. I think there is such thing as toxic positivity, but I don't think that saying affirmations and basically tricking yourself out into thinking that you can do something that you're afraid to do, or maybe your patterns are telling you, or your body has already done something different so many times, sometimes you really do have to push through, So maybe one of the things that you could just do now, instead of saying like, uproot your life, leave your relationship, move away, run away, one thing that you can do right now is really do healthy relationship affirmations. So maybe every day you say, I would look them up because people have this stuff online and they put a lot of work into getting the right affirmations, and there's people who channel affirmations. But just off the top of my head, an example would be like, I maintain my identity in relationships. I thrive in healthy relationships. Healed partners show themselves to me every day. I am being surrounded. Honestly, you know what? Let me write this shit down actually while we're here. Damn. Who asked that question? Adriana? Who asked that question? Adriana. Thank you. You helped us both with that one. I need those affirmations daily myself. toxic positivity is shame-based, what you're saying is definitely not. I see that. That's what I think too. I think the real toxic positivity is the stuff that is like those weird mind games. But I feel like a lot of times people call affirmations, positive thinking, basically faking it till you make it, reprogramming your brain in those ways. I feel like that gets thrown under the umbrella of toxic positivity, which annoys me because I'm like, okay, fine. Stay miserable then. It don't bother me. I'm the one that's in my car in traffic being like, I handle all situations with ease. So it's working for me. Oh, okay. So this is one really exciting question. What are we doing with time? We're an hour here. Okay. This is a really important question. So someone wants I don't know how they asked the question. I didn't write it in the same way I should have, but someone was basically asking, like, how do you detach from karma? Like, how do you finish all your karma? How do you fucking get off this wheel of karma? How do you separate from it? How do we just stop this rat race that it feels like of lessons and all of this? And I thought that was a beautiful question because I have thought about that myself a lot. And I would try, when I was a kid, I was so afraid to do things wrong. Even still, I hate doing things wrong. Because I'm like, oh God, if I make any mistakes, what's going to happen? Do I have to live this life all over again? So I found this great excerpt that actually changed my mind on the situation, and I want to share it with you. Okay. And this was another picture that I used. This was my dog. If you're going to watch the Linda Howe interview, this was the dog that was in that memory. Okay, so in this beginning of the chapter, she asks a little bit about like explaining karma. And what they talk about is that it's basically the law of balance and the law of cause and effect. And cause and effect is one of the basic laws everywhere, regardless of whatever universe you're in. This is just literally what it is. It's not about this like learning lessons and this and that and that and that. Like the reincarnation process, we'll get into that when we talk about the last question. The reincarnation process does put those things like lessons into it, but karma itself is very simply a cause and effect that is a natural occurrence that we see in our world and that they're saying is throughout our entire universe. So, some things could be, cause, Okay, look, even the act of breathing works out karma. So take a breath. Regardless of what you do, you are always working out your past karma. You are always creating your future. This is the cycle of life. So there is no escaping this law of cause and effect because the cause and effect will always be. It is far beyond what we understand as this karma concept that we use in our society. That we kind of use it as like cause and effect, but good and evil, balancing out, learning lessons, a little bit. We add those little details, but really it's cause and effect. And so the creating of future karma is what causes the universe to go on. Guys, your future karma does not have to be bad. You are always working out past karma and do the best you can in your present life. Your future karma will always have that effect because it's a cause and effect, literally. And I just really think that's so important. So I want to read that again. What causes the universe to go on is karma. This cause and effect is actually part of creation, the expansion of the universe. So it's not really about escaping karma. So then Dolores says, well, what about people who just want to pay it all off and just not create anymore and they don't want to do nothing? When you reach the higher levels of karma, you no longer have to go through physical lifetimes to work it out. And you can do it in the spiritual plane. You will still be working towards the ultimate. And even when you reach the ultimate, your karma will be influencing and including other universes that are working out the complex tapestry of the universe. It is not to be considered a prison. It is a natural cycle that you can grow and develop to become your ultimate self. Dolores says, well, many people say they don't want to come back here and do it all over again. And they are still immature. They have much growing to do in this grand cycle. And then Dolores says, I think most of the time people think of karma as if they hurt someone in the past, they will have to pay for it. That is an immature view. That is only one aspect of it. To liken it to your life cycle, when you were a child, you think punishment is always bad because you did something that you were not supposed to. Later, you realize that it was helping you and teaching you what you should be able to do and how you should survive well. Later on, when those things, good or bad, happen to you, you realize it is because of the mistake that you've made in the past that you are now living through the consequences of your mistake, or because it is a mistake someone else has made. But when you live further on and make fewer mistakes, your life settles down into a comfortable pattern. These people who speak of karma as relating to something bad they've done in the past are at a stage where they are looking at it as a punishment. You should be looking at it as a teaching tool to help you learn and grow and become better. They are still young in their cycles of life. And let's see if there's anything else I want to add from this. Well, that's the thing, though, is that what they're saying is that not create new karma. They say even breathing creates karma. So it's pretty much impossible to not create any karma. So what they're saying is that it's immature to think all karma is bad. Now, that related to one of the other questions. Someone asked, people who come here as volunteers to help with the shift, do they acquire more karma by being here? They might have already lived off some karma, and now they're going to come back here. And now what, they're going to get it all back again? Now that is another thing that talks about, I believe, in Between Death and Life. I think it talks about that, or maybe it's in Keepers of the Garden. No, it's Between Death and Life. And maybe it is Keepers of the Garden. But it says that basically some of the people who are here for this Earth mission have a sleeve of, the person described it as like a sleeve that was over the person that basically prevented them from acquiring like any negative karma from the planet. But they said it wasn't completely foolproof. So like these people have extra protection that they're not going to like acquire karma from doing life as a human unless their free will takes them to a point that they have to. So like say maybe you were here as a volunteer to help with this shift and consciousness raising on this planet. Now, they say that they do have an extra energetic protection over that person, so they can interact with all the things, but that sometimes they're not going to acquire karma from a lot of those situations, whereas someone who's still working out their karma is absorbing and getting locked into that karma, not locked, but pulled into that cause and effect. They won't be as pulled into the cause and effect of what's happening. However, there's still things you can do. If you do that, but then you accidentally, well, maybe not accidentally, purposely kill someone, well, then you probably are going to get that karma. One of the big things that Dolores talks about, which I don't know if I agree with, is that she says that like the second wave of volunteers, because those are a lot of people who are not from Earth, they don't want kids. A lot of people that are like in this millennial age group, especially people born in the 80s, they say that a lot of people born in this like portion of the 80s where they say a lot of the second waivers came, that a lot of those people don't want to have children because having children creates karma. I've heard other people ask that question later in more recent stuff, and they actually say that some of these other souls that are coming down, it's like a good karma that's happening. So they're creating karma by having a child, but it's like because they bring in these star seeds down, so it's a part of a bigger karma process, a bigger cause and effect. One of these Other questions that is really important before I get into the soul trap is, what should we do when we're trying to like bring happiness and live a better life and everything, and we focus on life? Should we focus on the personal happiness, or do we need to focus on the global happiness and like the globe and the bigger thing? And I know a lot of people find that struggle because what's going on in the outside world can look very horrible if you're very tuned into it. It can be really traumatic if you're really tuned in to like what's happening in the world and the news and everything. And then you also have this thing where it's like, okay, well, in order to bring myself up, I have to focus on myself. So do I focus on the problems of the world, or do I really focus on myself and get to my own happiness? But then you feel guilty if you're focusing on yourself and there's other suffering in the world. So this was, I thought, an important question to ask. And I think eventually both of those will be the same. So if you keep following your heart and you keep living in your truth, then both of those are going to be the same eventually. Now, I think earlier on in your journey, as stepping, not in your spiritual journey, but in your mission as a human of what you're going to contribute to this life, this planet, your bigger story, we also don't know what's happening. So we're all really early on in our story of what's going to happen in this grand story of our lives. Because there's still so much to come in the world that we don't know is what is coming. So I think in the beginning, where we're all at right now, if you are on this greater mission, now some people's mission is to focus on those global topics. And if you feel extremely called to focus on that global topic because it's your passion, maybe it's your homeland that is dealing with this. Like, you know, I have a lot of friends that are Iranian. They're really dealing with what's happening in Iran. Like, this is like their calling, their passion, and they're stepping into that global purpose and putting their own stuff aside and being like, my one friend, she's like, you know, going to like these different things to make sure that Iran is held accountable for what they're doing to her own people. Like, that is her being in her truth and her purpose, stepping into that. Now, I think through being in that and doing what feels right, her personal purpose they're going to align more and more. Now, I feel maybe you're not feeling super called to like fight for your people. And don't just like pick a random thing to virtue signal to people about. If you're not super drawn to it, it's okay. There's other people who are fighting that fight. Not every single person needs to fight every single social injustice. Everyone has to stay true to their heart because everyone has a mission on what's important and what their truth is and what they can contribute. So maybe you don't have an inclination to something like that right now. That doesn't make you a bad person. It means that now you need to focus on your own health, your own happiness, your own stuff, your own journey. Really focus on your own, and that's going to ripple out to something global, and they will align eventually. So you just need to stay true to who you are and the right thing. They will become one if you stay true to yourself, is what I believe. And now for the question everyone's been waiting for. I'm actually should look at a timestamp. Okay, 62 minutes, because I know there will be some people who just want to look at this one. All right. We're really plugging the health aid booch today. We're really doing it. We're doing it. All right. So now for the big question that I've been asked so many times, again and again, and maybe that's the reason why you're here, is the soul trap. So as I explained a little bit in the beginning of the video, this concept of the soul trap is, all of the reincarnation stuff that we've been talking about up to this point in the video is based on a lot of hypnosis, things from the subconscious, different channelings, as well as it lines up with many Eastern religions and traditions, what they've been saying for thousands of years. So I feel comfortable with this consistency. Now, a lot of people believe that there's the soul trap, that basically when you die, if you go into the white light, you basically just like fucked your whole self over because now you're going to get stuck on earth again. And that basically there's like this whole movement that's like basically called like, don't go into the light. Sorry. It's not for me. It's not for me. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, I don't think it's all completely wrong, and I will give you some examples of what I think is happening, and there actually is some truth to what they're saying. A lot of times people say that the white light is not what you think it is. That's true. It's not God. I don't think it's God. So they are right about that. They say that the beings that sometimes guide you through the white light, that sometimes people have beings that come and help them cross over. People, of course, are like, those are demons, devils and stuff, and they're tricksters, and they're trying to suck your loosh and feed on your energy. Now, there is entities that feed on energy. And those entities that are passing through the white light that sometimes help you, maybe they're not always exactly what they appear to be. Maybe you see them as God or Jesus or a loved one or this or that, and maybe they're not any of those things. So I'm not saying that the don't go into the white light people are 100% wrong. I'm just going to tell you why I don't agree with that. So I want to start by saying, let's pull back and look at real life for a second. So people, say you have a coworker who their car broke down. So you're like, you know what, Janet, her car's not working. I'm going to offer her a ride home so she doesn't have to take the bus. Offer her a ride home. It's nice. You just did it because, you know, hey, I haven't had a car before and I wish someone would have just offered me a ride home and not having to spend 2 hours getting home on the bus late at night. You know, maybe that's your reasoning why you did it, for an example. Now, Janet, now say later on, you and Janet kind of disagree about something somewhere down the line. And then you hear Janet's talking shit about you. Now, Janet says, oh, well, she tries to get all in my business. She'll be driving me home just to pry into my life, trying to ask me questions about my relationship. She's a hater. And you're like, what the? Girl, I drove you home because you didn't have a car. Not because I want to be inserting myself into your relationship and your problems that I really don't want anything to do with. Now, that's how I see what's happening with this soul trap story, is I feel there is something that happened. You drove Janet home. Your side of the story and what you believe is that, fuck it, I'm going to drive her home. Not a big deal. It's on the way. Maybe you didn't have a whole big story to the reason why. Janet's whole story, because of whatever's going on in Janet, inside Janet's heart and in Janet's head, Janet thinks that you're nosy and that you're doing this for some type of other reason. I feel like that is kind of what happens with the soul trap, because a lot of the stuff that those people are saying actually can be validated, and also information that I've gotten more recently does validate some of what they say, but I just feel like the nefarious reasons behind it are not. And let me go my notes for this so I actually can bring up the actual points that I had, not just Janet. Yeah, it's a fear narrative. Now, this fear narrative is actually very powerful, and you don't want to get sucked into that shit. Okay, so really important here is, so Tim from Cosmic Disclosure that I did the interview with, it's on my YouTube. That was so much fun. One of the questions I asked him is based off of something that I saw him say on Cosmic Disclosure that kind of like rocked me a little bit, because, you know, I love this information with the souls and reincarnation, and it gives me so much comfort. So this information that Tim presented actually kind of toppled a little bit of that on its head for a sec. And I had to get a different understanding and get comfortable with this new understanding of it. So I'm not saying that everything that I've read is all the answers, because I've already, just in the recently last couple months, evolved that answer since I've done the soul series. That evolved a little bit because of more information. So, of course, when I had the opportunity to ask him himself, of course I'm going to ask what he meant by that, and like just like a little bit of confirmation if that's what he was really saying. So on Cosmic Disclosure, he said that, like, you know, we understand the concept that like the earth might be a simulation. It's pretty easy for us to like now get that concept because we understand video games. This might be a video game, and there might be, I might be the character in the video game, and there might be my soul with the remote control from another place, and they can see here, and they exist in that world and this world, but I only exist in this world because they're playing me with the remote control. I can understand how that could be a simulation. Now, what Tim said, like I said, fucked me up a little bit. He said the whole entire reincarnation process, the entire whole thing of reincarnation, is a simulation within a simulation. Wait, what? Okay. Earth is a simulation. There's another simulation happening. And that's what we know. Now, that only gets you thinking back to the holographic model of the universe that we already know about, which means there's another simulation and another simulation, and maybe even God, the whole creation is a simulation. Wouldn't be that shocking, actually. If we're a simulation, probably everything else is. But besides the point, let's just keep it to these two. Earth, we come here to this Earth school to have this experience, to do this stuff, to do this experience on Earth. Outside of it is the reincarnation process. And so when I asked Tim about that, because that did make me a little uncomfortable, because I was like, damn, I felt like this was like really like the journey of the soul. And it is the journey of the soul. However, just like life as a human, that's kind of like a bigger version of it. Our soul has this identity that it goes through. But then there's other stages beyond that and other stages before that that don't apply to that simulation. So for us right now, that's really all we have to worry about. But, okay, what's really interesting here is that what Tim explained, and you can watch in the interview, and I can't wait to interview him again because I have more questions than I did when I started. Okay. Why, if we're all like source breaks out into all these different beings and all these different souls, these different perspectives, something needs to guide them through these lessons. Because if not, if it wasn't with this guided process, the same way that like Earth needs to create the scenarios of horrible stuff for us to learn those lessons, the reincarnation simulation has to teach those lessons to make the soul learn the bigger lesson. Like, so we're learning lessons, it's a bigger scale of a longer lifetime. So that is really interesting. So then it actually does, so then what he said is that, but when you become aware of it, you don't have to do the process. Not just because, hey, I know it's there, I don't have to do it, but by become aware of it, I feel like he means like when you really understand the whole purpose and you can reach that purpose without having to go through all of those lives, and you could just be like, oh, I am one of God, a piece of God, and I'm out here experiencing, and I'm going to reconnect with God eventually. Then, wow, then you actually don't need to go through this simulation of reincarnation. So, those white light people, anti-white light people, are not exactly wrong. However, the way that they're telling the story is really like Janet, who's kind of just like being a bitch. No, I'm joking, not a bitch. They're just like have a fear narrative of the story. And when you look at the bigger picture, so I'm not saying that what they're saying is exactly wrong. I don't think it's bad to go into the white light. I actually, personally, this is just me, not based on one specific source, just based on information that I have seen for many years. The whole, they say, don't go into the light so that you don't get stuck into the reincarnation trap. Okay, fighting the white light is scarier than going into it, because fighting the white light, to me, if you guys ever saw that movie Risk Cutters, it's like that movie about people who commits, I don't know if I could say the word here, people who take their own lives. It's like a weird dark comedy. I know, dark, but it's about these people who take their own lives. I think it came out in like 2002 or something like that, and basically they don't get to go to the next stage, and they live in the fourth dimension, and they basically live in like they're stuck in like the fourth dimension, which is time, and they're kind of stuck in time, so they're living in the same world but without the time flowing, and it's basically like a purgatory, horrible place. Also, I've heard about that same thing identical in this other stuff that I had seen years ago with this woman who was communicating with a ghost in her house, had like described the same thing. So I don't know. Personally, now this one, I'm saying I don't have a source for this one. This one is all me. I'm going in that fucking light. I'm just telling you. Because I'm not getting stuck in the fourth dimension, earthbound of this planet. I'm like, no, that's the last place I want to be. If I'm going to be on this planet, I want to be on the third dimension, not in like the weird dark astral where like ghosts and dead people live. And yeah, so now, and also based on everything that I know from these books is, um, you can't, and now, so that's the other thing I disagree with the soul trap thing, where people say you go into the white light and then you just get reincarnation recycled. Um, but there's just thousands of people, hundreds in Dr. Newton's books that we've read. So between those hundreds, there's how many thousands of people that he did sessions with. We have Dolores's 17 books. We have Dr. Brian Weiss has like 5 or 6 books. We have all of these different people who then learned those methods and continue it today, all talking about the same life selection process. My own self under hypnosis saw, well, I didn't see the selection process, but I was told which life I had to pick. So I didn't get to pick. They picked for me. But that I saw that myself under hypnosis. So the fact that there's some people who believe you just get sucked into some vicious, disgusting, horrible cycle because it's a matrix of sucking loose fourth dimensional demon reptilians are drinking you for breakfast. Maybe they are. However, I just think that there's way too many thousands of case studies of people who talk about how they select a life. So maybe you do go back into a reincarnation cycle. You don't have to. And also, you're not going to undo that karma that you need to work on by fighting the white light. Like, I mean, that is just ridiculous. Fighting the white light to prevent reincarnation. Want to prevent reincarnation? Then work on your shit right now. It's really that simple. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. So, I'm going to ask you guys some questions. Well, okay. Yeah, no, I did get all, I think I got all the points about that. Oh yeah, people talk about archons and stuff like that. I think, oh, yes, my last thing that I actually do want to say about that. Archons, reptilians, the loosh, all of the scary stuff. And I'm not saying that this stuff is completely false or whatever. I think there is like versions of our reality that this is absolutely prominent. I don't think it needs to be prominent in your reality, and I would not give my attention to any of that. Especially if you were crossing between worlds or passing over in your transition. Don't be worrying about archons and reptilians when you're passing over. Are you crazy? Do you really want to scare the hell out of yourself? But the biggest thing too, so on TikTok, you guys know that I'm doing a series called based on this book, Transylvanian Sunrise, and one of the next parts, we're going to talk about this whole thing that happens. But one of the quotes that I'll share with you is the guy who is this gifted person who gets approached by like the Bilderberg group, by like this whole like Illuminati stuff to like be involved in this thing, whatever. You got to watch that on TikTok. It's from a book, and basically the guy joins all of this thinking he can kind of like double agent it, but they're smarter than that. And he says that not until he like joined those organizations did he realize the purpose of evil, that he couldn't understand the purpose of evil before joining these kind of dark groups. And then he said, now I realize that evil is the only thing that makes us rejoin with Source. If there was no evil in the universe, everything would just expand and roam forever. And it's evil that actually draws us back there. And it has that divine purpose. And I was like, ooh, that was good. All right. Why would someone not want to go to the right white light? You're running to it. Me too. All right. Does anyone have any questions about what we talked about? I agree with that. We don't know if it's boring on the other side. That's true. So I have heard read in these books behind me, um, that as we know, the spirit world, or as we know, it comes up in this stuff, it comes up in Dolores' stuff, it comes up in a lot of Eastern religions, it comes up in shamanism, it comes up in a lot of things where they kind of talk about there's like three aspects of the world, three worlds, three aspects of the world, three realms, three levels, the lower, the middle, and the upper. And we know about this soul evolution process. Now, they say that that like middle range could be a little bit boring. But it's nice for the people who are there, because the people in the middle level really just want to enjoy their soul family and their soul clusters and have great times and memories and experiences together. So it's great for them. Higher advanced souls would probably find the middle level boring, because the higher advanced souls have already enjoyed family and friends and they want to contribute, do something, create something, learn. Is there a simple way to communicate with guides, and do we really have guides? So, the most simple way to communicate with your guides is in meditation, but I think something that could be the most kind of simple way, because meditation is intimidating. If you live alone, you can do it, or if you don't, just go into the bathroom. Go into the bathroom and just kind of like look up and be like, hey guys, I know I have guides, you're out there. Can you just please come through and just like help me, give me a sign, I need you, you know? And then don't be a negative Nancy and actually allow the things to happen and see them happening. Because sometimes I see people like they kind of ask for like help, but then when the help comes, they're so stuck in the story that there's no help, that they actually can't see the help happening in front of them. So that's another thing that we have to focus on. Another way to communicate with your guides that is super easy when you're wanting to build that relationship could be like, show me a pink car. Every time that you need me, that my guides, every time you need me to know that you're with me, or you want to comfort me and let me know that you're here, show me a pink car. Could be on TV, could be on a painting, could be a toy car, could be, you know, a car bed, you know, there's a lot of different ways that could come. So Ruby says, nothing we've covered today, but I would really like to know about people that don't have an internal monologue, no voice in their head. Some call them NPCs, but is there another name? I think they're lying. I'm so sorry. I think they're fucking lying. I think the people who can't visualize, 90% of them are lying. Yeah, they're lying. I'm sorry. They do talk in their head, because half of the people that are like, I don't have an internal monologue, and then 2 seconds later, like, I suffer from anxiety and every anxiety disorder under the sun. And I'm like, well, then what's going on? What scenarios are you building in there without any words? And then they're like, well, it's concepts. And then the same people who are like, I can't visualize, but I think of concepts. Yeah, dude, well, I don't think you understand what visualization is. I feel like the people are just literal. I feel like these are just very literal people who don't, that they need a little bit of help in understanding nuance, and that we don't have the words fully to describe it. So the words that we're saying to describe visualization, or the word that we're describing to have inner monologue, are not exactly good words to describe what's happening. And I think that's pretty much it. I think it's a misunderstanding. Someone saying I'm being savage, they're lying. I know people get pissed when I say that they're lying about the visualization. Also, the other thing too that I just know about this, because I know Dolores Cannon's method of hypnosis, this is exactly what it works with. The same thing, I love the Silva method of, Jose Silva's method of meditation. It's the exact same thing. The reason why they have you visualize, why they say like, imagine you're walking down a hallway, there's a large corridor. It's because our right side of our brain is the part that visualizes. Our left side of the brain is the one that's analyzing. You have to bring yourself more to the right side in order to experience visualization. People who can only be on the left side of the brain, I could see that they have trouble with visualization. And then they're so analytical that they literally are like, I can't see it because they're not seeing it through the back of their eyelids. Like, I think it's literally, so that's why to do techniques, if you want to get better at visualization, you have to, when you think of things, immerse yourself. So instead of just thinking like, think of your car. What are you going to think of? The outside of your car or something like that? Your car, I don't know, a picture of your car? What do you think of? Now, think, what is it like to sit inside of my car? What do the seats feel like? What does it smell like? How does the steering wheel feel? How does I don't know what that is called. I'm not good at cars. I have like every bit of information. You ask me about a car, I'm like, I don't know, the thing that changes it from drive, whatever that is. So that thing, your brake, all of those things, your seatbelt. Now you think about, what do those look like? What do those feel like? Do they smell like anything? Do they sound like anything? Now I know that's beyond visualization, but that's how you get into your right brain, and that's how you can get into a place of visualization where you can receive information, because the right brain is also the feminine side of the brain. The left brain is the masculine side of the brain. I know, they use these words. Don't be triggered. But as we know, the feminine energy is receptive and the masculine energy is, it pushes forward. So you get into your feminine side of your brain, your right side of your brain. It visualizes, it's the creative side. You bring all of these senses, and then that's how you can actually receive information from the universe. Like, you literally, that's how people like get telepathic messages and see things and have visions of their own art in the future that they're creating, and they get the vision of it. That's because they kept going deeper and deeper and deeper into the right side of the brain, and the left side is getting like, oh, okay. Oh, nothing to analyze here. I guess I'll just chill. The gear shift. The shifter. I've never seen the show His Dark Materials, but a lot of people tell me that I would probably like it. Can you okay, so this will be the last question. I love this question, Natalia. Can you incarnate back in time? Basically, can you incarnate and choose a life in the past? Or is every incarnation in the future from here on out? Now, I've heard some pretty conflicting information, and I think the reason for that is a lot of information that initially came out about past lives was throughout like this wave in the 60s. It happened 60s, 70s, 80s, was this kind of like underground thing of people like Dolores and Dr. Newton and these things where it was kind of like people were like starting to get into the past life thing and do past life regressions, and all of these different people who were skilled in hypnosis in a medical setting started having people regressing to past lives all across the world at the same time from the 60s and on. But I think at that time they couldn't understand simultaneous time. So I feel like the idea of past lives was that they could only be in the past. However, now, since 80s, 90s, and now we're getting even more advanced like crazy, the more that consciousness raises, we actually do understand that you can incarnate to past lives that are in a linear time that is in the past. But, and part of the reason why I know this is because in that book, the Helen Wambach book, where she moves, even in Dolores Cannon's Nostradamus book, where they move the subject to a future life, the person can use hypnosis to progress into a future life. So if you can go to a future life, that means that you're already the past life of that other life. So you're actually already incarnated in a past life. And then I've also heard, obviously, like the egg theory. And the egg theory is kind of like a more encapsulated version of all of this stuff, a more simplified version, but in some ways more complex. It's a paradox because it's more complex, but it's also simplified as hell, which is basically we are all one person, and that one person is incarnating and incarnating and incarnating and incarnating. So like literally you'll come to the 1500s, to BC, to the Egyptian time, to the year 2025, to the like And it's just one person incarnating itself and just interacting with itself. But it's the same whole incarnation process. So I also, think that that could be a bigger version of everything that we're talking about. Wow. Well, guys, this was even better than the first one. I had so much fun. I love the chat. I love that this is like a weekly little community that we can come and talk about stuff with. Have I read any Sylvia Browne books? I haven't. I used to watch her on TV when I was a kid, but I've never read her books. Oh, hi, Mina. Oh, hi, Ian. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much, Courtney. Thank you, everyone. This is so great. Oh my God, wait. What topic are we gonna do next week? Does anyone have any ideas? Let's see. What was one of the things? We could talk a little bit about dimensions. That's a fun one. Oh, thanks, guys. I'll put it on my Instagram. Okay, everyone, we'll do a little poll on Instagram of a couple of different things. Ooh, reptilians next week. You want to talk about scary stuff next week? Ooh, I'd be down to talk about that. Okay, I will put it. Ooh, NPCs. Ooh, okay. Dreams, interdimensionals. Ooh, aliens. Am I going to finally tell you who the Antichrist is? No. You know what I realized about that? I told you guys when I went to the Akashic Records storing the astrally throughout the Apocalypse series, and my guides and stuff were all mad at me for talking about the apocalypse in that series. I realized the other day, I was like, yo, I bet you Dolores was pissed. Because she's like, damn, you're going to put my book on blast like that and basically make people try to come after a world leader. And I was like, damn. Dolores probably was a part of that collective that was all I felt like mad at me when I did that. Gray aliens, Pleiadians, Antichrist, dark dimensions. Ooh, I don't know too much about that. Scary stuff. Okay, cool. I'm going to do a little poll, but I do like that. I think maybe like reptilians, NPCs, Agent Smith. That sounds fun. All right, guys. Well, oh wait, I have to do it on that one. Thank you so much.